we go. There we go. Thank you. So we get to see everybody that's here and not look through the screen, and we had to really get dressed this morning, doggone it. So the first thing on the agenda is, so I call a meeting to order, and a motion to approve the minutes unless there are some edits or additions to the minutes. Is there a motion?
I would like to make an amendment to the agenda. We can go. That before the minutes?
For the minutes from last May 10th?
The agenda. We skipped the agenda review here.
Okay, all right, so we want to go back to the agenda review.
I apologize.
That's all right.
We had DPS teacher housing discussion, and we want to move that to our next meeting. We're not ready to provide an update at this time.
So we're going to remove that from the agenda. Yes. Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, I will move on to a motion for approval of the minutes. It's been moved in second. You've got an addition.
Excuse me for 1 second. Because everyone is wearing their mask, if you can please move the mic closer, we cannot hear you. Thank you.
Can you talk a little louder with the mask on so that it can get recorded? Still not picking up? Still can't hear you. Is mine working? Mine is working. So
just under number 4 on the minutes, under Northern High School, the 1, 2, 3, third paragraph down, it says something about hot some brick walls. I'm just not sure what that meant. So it's just a typo or some error there. So if that could be corrected in the minutes.
okay, but it has been moved. You want to restate your motion, Wendy, with the necessary corrections?
I move that we approve the minutes with the necessary typo corrected.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Michael, do we need a roll call? No. Okay, so I need all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes have been approved unanimously. The next thing on the agenda, the bond timeline update. Claudia, the general manager,
It sounds like it's about to sing. Good morning, everyone. This is a great place that we're at. It's been many years in the making, and so we're glad that we're on the final countdown. And I know when we had our public hearing, or one of our recent meetings, I said we probably needed balloons to fall.
Claudia,
ceiling.
Claudia, your mic isn't working very well either, so either.
Okay,
of that-
I can move. Is this better? Okay, very good. Well, let me start again. I basically was saying, one of our board meetings, I talked about, this has been such a long time in the making, and we probably needed balloons and confetti to come down as we get closer to the countdown towards the referendum being presented to our voters as a choice. Will not take long. I always, although I'm going to probably be 10 minutes, always give the context of how we got here. But you know, our planning process occurs over multiple cycles, as you know, and we're always committed to making sure we determine what the needs are and develop a strategy for dedicated resources to pay for those needs. We started summer, fall of 2021 with updating our CIP. We had master facility plan updates within the county, Durham Public Schools, as well as with Durham Technical Community College. The Museum of Life and Science also did some updates. In the winter of 2022, after we received the request, there were conversations as well as vetting by our financial advisor, and we had some community feedback and board discussion. In the spring, there was additional vetting with some agreement to move forward with the bond referendum conversation. In the summer, early summer, or in June, we did the official publish of intent that we would have a referendum, and in the summer of 2022, procedurally, we had the public hearing on the bond referendum, and based on those conversations, we moved forward with the following steps. Now, this does not have all of the nuanced steps that we go through with the local government commission. There's a one-pager that's probably in 10-point font that shows all of those steps between the local government commission and other stakeholders that are involved. The bond referendum, as you know, will be $550.1 million with Durham Public Schools requesting $423.5 million, Durham Tech $112.7 million, and the Museum of Life and Science $13.9. To move forward with this referendum, it does require a property tax increase based on our projections. The projected amount will require a 2.5 cents tax increase, and this table shows the impact of that amount on the various house valuations. As far as next steps, I'm going to have Deborah come and help share some of that. I've gone over most of these, and so she'll pick up with August.
Thank you, Claudia. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everybody in person since our executive order expired yesterday, and now we get to see everybody's wonderful face. Thank you for all you're doing. I'm just going to quickly highlight some of these key dates on the screen. Of course, back in June, we had to file the notice of intent with the LGC as is required. That's really the first step for us. July 1, our board met in this room to officially approve the bond orders as is also required by the local government commission. On July 11th, also in this room, we held a public hearing so that citizens were able to come in, hear the information, make any comments that they wanted to get on the public record. On July, we received the copy. The Board of Education was sent the resolution that was officially certified by our clerk. The next step where we are now is we're working to pull together what we typically call a blue ribbon committee. That is a group of citizens, leaders, if you will, that will represent all three of the bond questions. They will advise and market and help push the bond vote forward. As you know, as local government officials, we can only do public education. And at the same time, we are working on that internally as well. Next month, the LGC will provide the approval of the bond orders. The next step will be in September, we will get the first notice of a special bond referendum, and that is also prescribed in the legislation, the number of days that has to happen prior to the vote. On October 9th, we will get the second notice of special bond referendum. And then in terms of the election, October 14th is the last day to register to vote. Early voting actually starts on October 20th, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, the actual vote will take place on November 8th. And finally, the great thing will be November 28th, when the resolution certifying and declaring the results will be issued, and we will celebrate and begin to move forward as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
So that concludes our overview of the timeline, and we'll entertain any questions.
Comments? Mr. Jacobs?
Thank you, Deborah and Claudia, and everybody who has worked to get us to where we are on the timeline. I was wondering, Deborah, if you could tell us a little bit more about what the Blue Ribbon Committee will be doing, because they won't have a lot of time when they get started. It'll be really September, and then, as you noted, the voting starts October 20th.
Yeah.
So it's a really tight timeline. If you could tell us about what they'll be doing and any ways that we all might be helpful, because I know that part of their job is to go out and speak to folks.
Right. So I will tell you that work is already being done behind the curtain, if you will. Publications are being developed, websites are being developed, speeches are being developed. So when we hit the ground, we will have a package of work already available to share out with you. The committee, of course, once we pull them together, their job will be to do the marketing. They will hire someone to actually literally do the marketing to promote the bonds, and they will do fundraising and all of the steps that are required that we traditionally do. Again, that's a private group, and you know, we sort of have a Chinese wall between us, but we are aware of what they do, and we'll be in touch with them all along the way, as we have done in the past. I'm very confident that we have some seasoned people ready to help advise them. I've talked to several people who have had experience in the past. They know exactly what to do and when to do it, and so I'm very confident that we'll have a wonderful marketing team going forward.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, Deborah, just quick question. I heard you mention about public education. How does it look like, and who's going to be doing that public education?
Well, certainly all of the participants will be doing public education. The county will do a site, and we will actually have a link to everybody else's site. And again, we will help with speeches and any other things that you need. We will work with your public information team to make sure the work is seamless, that we each know what we're doing, make sure we don't go afoul of what the rules are in terms of what we can say as we are putting this information out. Thank you. Matter of fact, I just wanted to mention, I will be getting back to you and probably Chair Umstead, because I'll be working on a show for my show, In Touch with Durham County. I'll be doing some interviews with all the principals for the show that we're going to produce next month. So hopefully when I reach out, we can find a good day to do a quick interview. Thank you.
Mine was relatively quick, as always. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Claudia, for the update. It's more of a process question, quick yes or no. I know that we received guidance on what we could and could not say, and we got, I think, Bond Council had a sheet that they gave us. Did we provide it to the school board also? Or will they be updated as well on what we can and cannot do?
I believe we shared that.
Okay.
If we did not, we certainly can.
Thank you, ma'am.
Third time's the charm.
We're sharing. I just wanted to celebrate all the work that has come to bring this finally to bear. This is exciting for our community, and the projects that are listed are so exciting. Do we have the language that will appear on ballots for voters yet?
We have that.
I would love to see that. It's always, I'd rather it be a yes or no, but it's always has to be very legalese, and so as soon as we can kind of get that out to community members as well, I think that's always
We can
helpful.
certainly share that because it has been produced. Claudia?
Based on bond council, this guidance is very broad and simple. We try to make sure it's clear that the voters are approving a dollar amount and not specific projects. This is one of the toughest markets to construct any type of project. And so we know whatever list that we're looking at, there will be some refinement over the next several years. And so the language is broad, but we can definitely share that as well. And as Deborah said, we've been working with our colleagues at the various entities to make sure that we're in sync. There are some documents that can be shared and communicated from an educational perspective from the county and the schools, et cetera. So we're also syncing that up. Websites are being developed, as she said, as well as information to make sure folks are clear about concerns. We've heard some concerns, and we're looking at, how do we make sure information is clear? How do we explain those gray areas that may be somewhat confusing? Our intent is to make sure the facts are there.
Thank you, Claudia, Deborah. Thank you both. We will move on to the next item, which is number 5, Building Service Capital Planning Update. There you are.
Okay, good morning again, everyone. So we just got through talking about the bond process and how you get to the dollars needed for construction. We're going to provide you with what your bond dollars look like at work. We're going to start with the 2016 Bond Referendum that includes projects such as Lions Farm Elementary, which we will be opening doors up to our new pre-K through 5 students in a couple of weeks. As well as Northern High School, which people have been in great anticipation of that replacement school being opening. And that will actually open up in school year 2023. In addition to that, Mr. Davis will also give you an update on a few of the bond projects that's on this next list that we were able to get started through our work with the county staff and very creative funding so that we would have projects that were shovel ready. So that we could take advantage of any type of economic biz as possible so that we could stretch those dollars further. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Davis, and I believe there's a video that's going to start us out with, and please enjoy.
Thank you, Dr. Monk. If you would, staff, play the video. Thank you. Greetings. I'm Frederick Davis, Executive Director of Building Services for Durham Public Schools. In our last update, we provided you an update on 2 of the new schools currently in construction, Lions Farm Elementary and the new Northern High School. I am thrilled just in 2 more weeks, we will open our doors to what will be home to future leaders of tomorrow. Let's take a look at the many wonderful things showcased in this school.
I'm sitting here in what is a traditional classroom. While it may have just 4 walls, we've included things to make this ready for 21st century learning. We have flexible seating that you see around so the students can learn in different types of environments. We also, being a district of 1-to-1, have utilized technology where students will use their laptops and teachers to project and collaboratively work together. There are many features that we're excited about. We also want to make sure we do our part in reducing our carbon footprint. So as you see, the use of LED lights as well as motion control sensors to reduce the energy usage and to be able to utilize the sensors from the sun as well as occupancy to really be intentional in our sustainability efforts. When we talk about educational suitability, not only do we want to talk about brand new, ground up K-12 construction, we also want to be good stewards of our existing facilities. And as a part of our 10-year CIP, we will begin renovating 6 elementary schools that will deal with capacity, life and safety, as well as making classrooms functional for collaborative and 21st century learning. As a part of operations, we believe that design and construction should be a tool for social interaction and that the built environment should foster learning at every level. Here at Lions Farm, we're intentional in that. Let's take a look at some of the many design features incorporated in this school.
The design team places special emphasis on bringing the natural environment through imagery and landmarks that are synonymous with the good old state of North Carolina. From the mountains on the Blue Ridge to the Piedmonts, all the way down to the lighthouses of the beaches. Students can also learn about the potential wildlife that may be present in the surrounding area through the lily pads on the ceiling tiles, as well as the amphibian, fish wildlife on the floor finishes.
We're excited about the many design and construction projects, both new and renovated, here in Durham Public Schools. But last but not least, we're at the beginning stages of what will be a proud project for not only the arts education, Durham, but North Carolina, as we start the visioning session for the new Durham School of the Arts. This visioning session brought forth members of the community, staff, and others dealing with the arts to ensure a collaborative brainstorming and visioning for the future of arts for Durham County Schools. Let's take a look at some of the many people who are involved and get their feedback.
All of our schools offer quality arts education programs. We need places where students that want rigor and to grow and expand more than any other student in the arts. We need a place for them to learn as well. So we want to create pathways here in the new Durham School of the Arts for them to be able to do exactly that.
The biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is just imagining what our school could be and how it can be a true art school for the district and what that looks like and how we can utilize the facilities to make that happen.
I always say school is home. And you want our students and our staff to feel at home. So what better thing to do than to have a brand new building that has input from everybody that meets the needs of our students in Durham, because that's what we're about. And why don't our students deserve the best that there is to get in the state? And I think that's where we're going.
We're excited that the new Northern will open in 2023, home to the Knights and their award-winning culinary arts program. On Wednesday, July 27th, we were a part of a tremendous event of the last piece of structural steel being hoisted up into the facility. This signifies tremendous progress and moves us to the next phase of making sure this building opens for the future Knights of tomorrow, next year. Following Northern High School, in 2024, we will open our doors to our largest elementary school in the county. Murray Massenburg Elementary will seat 850 students ready to receive the anticipated growth in the county.
As we continue to move the needle of making sure we have 21st century learning environments for Durham Public Schools, I'd like to thank all that made this possible, our Board of Education, as well as our county commissioners, as well as administration, staff, students, parents, and our communities. But this truly is a collaborative effort. I'm excited. For the next 3 to 5 years, we will be designing construction new schools throughout the county. Please stay tuned for more updates on our 10-year CIP. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that brief update. Next slide, please. As mentioned in the video, along with building new facilities, we want to make sure we touch as many schools in the district with over 6 million square feet. And so here are the 6 images of a before and the potential after of the 6 elementary schools that will be doing fully renovation. And though we call it renovations, we'll see the budgets almost comparable to a new school. As we said before, these schools will be gaining additional capacity to deal with the growth, not only in the southern part, but the eastern part of the county, as well as just making sure that we have 21st century learning environments, so having collaborative pull-out spaces that are inviting and exciting for the students' education. Next slide, please. This is just a schedule of the potential where we are in our process. Murray-Massenburg, we received bids this month and we'll be taking an anticipated GMP to our board in September for the beginning construction of Murray-Massenburg, which is a 18-month duration that will open in 2024. Again, Lions Farm, we've got the TCO and we'll be ready to open our doors in August of 29th. Again, you see the other ones as we continue to process, as Dr. Munn alluded to, we will be shovel ready and making sure that we meet these milestones at every facet. Next slide, please. We'll take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Mrs. Jacobs.
Thank you, and I really love the video updates. Thank you. Very exciting to see all the progress and all the things happening. I have a few questions. One is, at some point, can we get a tour of Lions Farms School?
I'll check with the fire marshal, but I think we can make that happen.
Okay,
yes.
okay. I know we want to wait till school gets up and running, but just at some point.
We also have a planned special event in September. We'll do a ribbon cutting. We'll invite
okay.
all
Great. Well, that's
elected officials and community members. So, but if you don't want to wait, if you want to enroll in our
No. That would be perfect.
All right,
That would be a great opportunity. The other thing I just want to mention for both of our boards is I don't know what it means yet, but the Inflation Reduction Act has a lot in there related to energy efficiency and solar implementation, and I know we each have our sustainability goals, and just want to make sure we all look at that and see what type of funding opportunities there might be for us. I'm really excited about that. The third thing is, it was mentioned in the minutes that there was going to be some information coming about Durham Public Schools property, and I don't know if that ever got shared or forwarded out to anyone, but I just wanted to put another request in. I think, looking at the timeline about moving forward with the new schools, and I've raised this before, that I think it's really important that we have community discussions about also the use of former school sites. Durham Public Schools is one of the biggest probably the biggest property owner in the county outside of Duke. It's just important to have community engagement around the sites that are, like the old Northern High School site, and if DSA is not going to be used for School of the Arts, that's really, as I've raised before, 17 acres in downtown Durham. The county is, as you probably read in the paper, we are being very ambitious about how we look at our properties and how we use them to meet community goals. We just are purchasing a 12 acre, is it 17 or 12, the shopping center? 17-acre shopping center, which is going to be close to the new elementary school. But, you know, we're looking at that for not just the Board of Elections, but also other important community needs, and, of course, purchasing the old Boys and Girls Club. But, you know, the number one pressing issue in our community is the need for housing. And I do look forward to the conversation about affordable housing for teachers and other workforce housing for people in our community, and how we can all work together, recognizing that all the properties that we own, the city, the county, and the schools, are some of the biggest tools that we have, because we're so limited in the state with things like not having inclusionary zoning. And also, we have some great examples out there. The county was one of the leads on renovating the old Whitted School into senior housing. And it's a wonderful senior housing. And just to throw it out there, when I think about the DSA site, and I'm sure you all, I know I've heard, have some goals for doing some educational purposes there, but there's a lot of empty fields there. And you know, thinking about seniors and teachers being able to live there, and for seniors being able to walk to things that they need is, I think, for me, an exciting thing to think about. So I want to put that out there and ask the county manager and the superintendent what you think might be the next steps in this conversation about just, you know, all of the land that we all own.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jacobs. I know that there have been conversation in the community about the current DSA facility. That's a prime location as well. Excuse me. I'm fine. I'm COVID-free. So just give us a little bit of time here to talk with my staff, and I'll be talking with Dr. Sowell at some point as well. But we also need to keep in mind Durham is growing. DPS is still going to have needs for locations. We don't own a lot of location beside the northern that's going to become available, as well as DSA. And the location, the old Lowe's Grove that we really wanted to build teacher housing. I like the fact that you even brought the conversation where we can partner with county and other agencies for teacher housing, which is really critical. Lowe's Grove location is one prime location that we can explore those possibilities. And I think when we started this conversation, we're up to 73 units that we could build. I'm not speaking for my board, but my board, they're going to have to jump in at some point. I think when we started those conversations, we're flexible to be able to work with other agencies. But I'm going to say this about DSA location. We have Durham School of the Technology, which is a current new tech. Is going to need a place because we have Google coming in, Apple coming in. We really want to expand it to make it really a good place for our families. So we're going to be flexible. We'd like to listen. I'm going to engage Dr. Sowell at some points to see what are the possibilities. And we are flexible, but we got to keep in mind, as DPS, as Durham's growing, DPS is going to grow in the future. We're going to have to need some land to be able to expand as well. So those will be the conversation. I'll start with my planning team, and then if Dr. Sowell team, we can get together around the table and see what the future is going to look like. So we are very grateful for all these new projects that you guys are helping us with, and we are open to work with our county.
I have one follow-up question for Superintendent. Have you made any decisions about any of the properties as to what will be there?
I think these are pretty much a preliminary conversation. Our board has not voted on this. The way we're looking at DSA, Durham School of Technology, that was an option. And we're also looking at the option as we're going to spend at some point. Some of our central offices can move to that location as well. That's what just preliminary conversation. I don't want my board to blame me on this. We have not finalized anything yet.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative of opening the conversation about how we use public assets for the entire public. I will say that we have had preliminary conversations about having a vocational school up at the existing northern campus in the future. That's one dream that we have. The same thing with the upfitting Durham School of the Arts. But again, we don't have funding for those renovations at that point either, so that would need to be further conversations that we would have with you all along those lines. The other thing that we continue to monitor, I am so glad our planning staffs are working so well together, is the growth in East Durham specifically and the need for a future elementary school there. You know that that renovating or replacing Jordan High School is on that list that our staff is starting to look at, and how we would do that. So it's almost as if when we get one bond ready, that's the start point. We need to continue the conversations on the next needs that we have. Yeah, but I'm excited to have those conversations with you all, and we know we have those shared values for housing in the community and know how important that is.
Thank you all for the presentation and everything that we've talked about so far this morning. I just want to agree with Natalie's points. When we think about the growth in East Durham and in South Durham, I think about Githens Middle School, who also is pretty large. We're adding new elementary schools on South Durham, so we'll need some more space for those things. So I'm looking forward to that collaborative conversation. And like Dr. Mabinga shared, we don't have a ton of land that's not being used now for educational purposes. So how do we do some collaborative thinking about what that looks like in the future? As we know, Durham is growing and people are buying land all the time.
Oh, mine works. Thank you. Woo, mine really works. Thank you. This is a great presentation. I, too, loved the video. And I must also admit that about 2 weeks ago, I rode my bike down that way. It's because the new elementary school, Lions Farm, is right off the American Tobacco Trail. And so it's pretty easy to take a detour and swing around the building, and it looks beautiful. And all of your plans in this presentation just really feed my excitement about the beauty of these new schools, the learning environment that our children are going to have. It's going to be awesome, and they're going to be gorgeous buildings and healthy and safe, and exactly what we want for our kids. So I'm very, very excited about all this. I would be interested in knowing a little bit more in the future, near future, about the growth in the county, where we're seeing the most. Southeast Durham clearly is an area, and how the school capacity is matching the potential growth that we're seeing, and how we all can be proactive in purchasing new land if we need to in these parts of the county that are seeing a lot of growth. I just also want to sort of reiterate Wendy's point about energy efficiency and sustainability on both the county side and the school district side. I hope we'll do absolutely everything in our power, take all possible steps to achieve as much energy efficiency and sustainability and minimize our carbon footprint as we possibly can. And then I just wanted to make a plug for safe routes to school, and the ability of all of our kids to be able to walk to school as much as possible. And I'm not really sure what the county's role is there. It's tricky with transportation and what the city does and roads and sidewalks. Typically we think of that as being city. But if we need to bring more people into the conversation, I'd like to see more movement there if possible, and what can we do on the county side to be supportive. At National Line Out, I spoke to a mother in Oxford Manor who was excited about the possibility that their kids might be able to walk to the new Northern. For me, I couldn't quite see how that would connect geographically, but she said there was a route through sort of the backside. It wouldn't be hard. Anyway, I just didn't know whether that's on anyone's radar, but she said she thought the kids there would walk if they could, if there were a safe route. So I don't know much about that, but wanted to lay it out there and see if others have, see what sorts of conversations are being had about safe routes to school in general. Maybe that could be a future discussion item unless someone has something to say about it now. But thanks, everyone. I really, really appreciate all the work and the collaboration around this.
Louis? Council? Remember? Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the presentation, Dr. Monk and Mr. Davis. It's always good to see the pictures and see the growth that's happening. I definitely want to commend you all also for being on schedule. Like we talked about this 2 years ago and being shovel ready, and to know that we're opening on time. Just a quick anecdote, there is a charter school nearby that has to delay opening for a month because they don't have all the equipment in place in order. So again, just commend the hard work from our team, the collaborative work with the county to making sure we're shovel ready and hitting these deadlines to get these schools open for our children and families. So thank you for your report. Thank you for your diligence and hard work. Speaking of capacity in our schools, we've had a presentation on growing together. And as we are looking to go into these regional models and create the processes and plans for that, there is that already there projected school capacities in our elementary schools. And we're beginning to start our middle school and high school phase of this planning growing together. So I echo Chair Umstead's sentiment that we have to really look at what's going on with our middle schools. They have been over capacity, and we've already done some boundary assessments around that. With this regional model also, we have transportation efficiencies. We've changed our bell schedule just for that reason. And looking at the transportation efficiencies, also looking at proximity to schools and being able to walk and bike and things of that nature. I don't know specifically where we are with safe routes. I don't want to turn that over to Dr. Monk or Mr. Palmer on those efforts, but I just know that our growing together, our regional models, our bell schedule are all things leading towards just being efficient, knowing what our capacities are and where our growth needs will be as well. So thank you for those questions. We can definitely follow up with you for additional details. And that's all that I had. Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Carter's comment about safe routes to schools and ask if DPS staff, and I know Ellen Beckman is not here, who's our transportation director, but there is money in the infrastructure bill specifically for safe routes to schools, and have we started looking at that and any opportunities? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Monk. And before I answer the sustainability question, I just want to take the time to thank Mr. Manns and General Service and the county. About roughly 45 to 60 days from to next week, we started planning with the authorities having jurisdiction and our inspections to ensure that we weren't like those other schools that didn't make the mark. So I just want to really thank county staff for helping us make sure students would be able to walk into those doors on August 29th. So I just want to chime in on that. In terms of sustainability, we did move some of our 2016 bond funds, about $3 million of that. What you did not see that will happen around October is roof solar panels being added to Lions Farm. And so that, again, will culminate the beginning of what we hope will be long years of planning and sustainability efforts. We are in the also incubator stages of looking at our high schools as well as our administrative buildings for electric charging stations. We hope to have that come to fruition, and probably around this spring, you will see maybe 3 to 4 charging stations at our administrative buildings and at all 4 of our high schools. And so we're doing our due diligence in that regard, as well as we have solicited a consultant to look at what sustainable features could happen. I know we always talk about solar and LED lighting, but there are other ways to be energy efficient. So we're going through that process as well, make sure that we allocate our dollars efficiently. I think, Dr. Monk, that was what you, all right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Palmer. Thank you.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. Love hearing that. Oh, and real quickly, could I also just congratulate the school board and the school district on all the work that went into changing the bell schedule and moving all of our adolescents to a later school start time. Really, really matching policy with research and evidence on that. And I know it was hard work.
Thank you all. Matthew Palmer with Planning and Transportation and Nutrition, and just a couple updates around school travel, transportation. I think, as has been alluded to, we are rolling out a district-wide consistency plan for school bell times that will migrate us from a 2-tier to a 3-tier system that will improve our service and efficiency for our students and families. We're very excited about that. That's actually already started with our year-round schools and specialty schools in session now. With regards to safe routes to school, want to acknowledge the collaboration between Durham Public Schools and the support of our Board of Education, as well as Dr. Mbenga and Dr. Monk, to ensure safe and equitable access to all our facilities. We realize that we have inherited schools that at times were built in locations that are hard to get to, and that making it easy to get to school makes it easy to go to school, and all the good things that happen there. And so right now, in collaboration with the city, the county, and the state, we are focused on 3 schools particularly. Of course, the new schools we're discussing today, Lyons Farm Elementary School. We have active projects going on there along Scott King Road to promote a crosswalk. Northern High School, we continue to partner with NCDOT and the city to ensure that we're in compliance with the development requirements, but also that we can, there again, get kids to school as safely and efficiently as possible. Oxford Manor, we can discuss at another date about that particular neighborhood, but we're working on it. For DSA, we're even looking there again at the intersection of Stadium and Carver, making sure that that's an accessible site for all families. And when I say accessibility, I'm talking not only about a physical access, but also ensuring that we're in ADA compliance. So under Dr. Monk's leadership, we're reviewing all of our facilities and campuses to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make those safe and accessible. And again, using the disparities that might exist between our standards, what should a school look like and where it is today, to inform our capital improvement program, as well as our partnerships with the city, county, and state when there are those funding opportunities. So we're working around the clock. We have a community transportation planner, Kristen Brookshire. We brought over from UNC Highway Safety Research Center, who's working closely with Ms. Beckman to make sure that we're good partners. So happy to answer any additional questions or present at another date.
I'm so glad I asked. These are great responses. Thanks.
Just to add, the infrastructure bill also has EV money in there too. So I hope you'll reach out so that we, a lot of times you need to have a city or a county or MPO sponsor for that. So, and Ellen can help with that.
Okay. I appreciate all the work that's being done, and this is incredible what's going on. I do have one question, and it doesn't have to be answered today, but I'd like for us to, if you could let us know what's happening with enrollment around charter schools. If you could get that with us and let us know what's the percentage of students that you're leaving for charter schools. You can give us that information another time. That's important. All right, thank you. All right, we will move on to the next presentation. And that one, the next one is pre-K update. South Cape, there she is. Yeah. Early childhood. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. This is
For sure. Thanks for having us. It's nice to see y'all in person. And it's nice to be here with a full presentation about pre-K. I feel like the last few times it's been a written update, so it's really nice to kind of be able to talk with you all today about this really important initiative and partnership in our community. So thanks for putting us on the agenda. I'm going to go through a few updates first, and then I'm going to pass it to Linda Chappelle, Senior Vice President at Child Care Services Association, one of our many strong partners with Durham Pre-K and our pre-K administrator. Excuse me. So I came to the board, actually, the Board of County Commissioners maybe 2 weeks ago now, or last week, I can't remember, to kind of finalize the budget amount for pre-K for this year, and we had a robust discussion just about acknowledging how much progress we've made since we, in 2015, the three boards passed that joint resolution for universal pre-K in our community, but also acknowledging that there's a lot of progress left to make, and wanting to kind of take a moment to kind of share where we are. So just naming that, sorry, just 1 second. In our first full year of pre-K, we started with 16 sites and 28 classrooms, and you'll see up there that there are now 24 sites with 40 classrooms, which feels like a big deal and includes, of course, Lyons Farm. And there has been a growth. I was making notes, y'all, because I wanted to bring these numbers to you. Where is it? Well, I can share it later. Anyway, so there are 607 locally funded seats this year, and I believe in 2018, 2019, there were 331 locally funded seats. So again, that's almost a 50% increase since our first full year, and since the fiscal year 19-20, it's a 31% increase. Acknowledging this year that we're also implementing a RAP Care pilot, and I know this issue is particularly on the mind of our Board of Education with the challenges with before and after school care that we're experiencing this year, and we acknowledge this is also a need for pre-K. So Linda will share a little bit more about that in a minute, and also sharing that our current county funding this year for pre-K is a little over $5 million. There was more of a substantial increase this year, and a commitment to work toward more substantial increases moving forward just to get us to our goal. Our goal is serving 75% of 4-year-olds in Durham with high-quality, publicly funded pre-K, and we're about 50% of the way there this year. So just sharing our application updates for this year. As of August 5th, we had a little over 1,600 applications. There's been more since August 5th. And we actually have updated numbers as of today on placement offers. There have been 910 offers, and 778 families have accepted those offers for an 85% acceptance rate. And that application review and placement process is ongoing. Applications are still being accepted, and even though we're not at fully enrolling Durham Pre-K yet, those application and acceptance rates are higher than last year. And it's worth just acknowledging that we're continuing to move out of COVID and continuing to still feel those challenges impacting our application rates. So with that, I think I'm going to pass it to Linda to share some of our systems updates And then Linda and I will both take questions. Thanks, y'all.
Hello, good morning. Great to see you guys in person. First, just of context for a moment. You all know I'm passionate about preschool and get tired of listening to me, but I will say that across the state, Durham is truly in the spotlight. We have recently, see that last bullet there, we've recently convened a statewide community of practice for peer learning for administrators in counties where significant local investments are being made. And from Durham, we are leading that, and the response has been incredible. It's really about best practice, making sure that we are implementing strategies that will work. This is a very much a growing program, and in Durham, we are unique because, you'll recall, we are trying to braid all of our systems together. Some counties are not doing that. Some counties are creating parallel programs, and those parallel programs cost more. Even though you see that number and you have a little bit of sticker shock, I'm sure, as elected officials, the reality is that high quality does cost more, but the way we're doing it in Durham, by braiding all the services and the funds, and by working together, although sometimes challenging, because every program has different requirements, different rules for entry, and different ways of doing business. In Durham, we meet regularly across partners, which include Durham Public Schools, Durham Partnership for Children, who's the state administrator for NC Pre-K, CCSA as the county's administrator of Durham Pre-K, as well as Head Start. We meet regularly and have convened 6 times per year extended facilitated meetings. Now, you may say to yourself, wow, that's a lot of time, but that's what makes the difference in really trying to integrate the programs and services. So, Durham is in the spotlight. We have made a lot of progress, but when Kate was sharing numbers, you'll recall, those are she's reporting this morning just on the locally funded through Durham Pre-K numbers. Later in the year, we'll provide you with the overview of all the systems together, because that's what is really the most powerful when you see how many 4-year-olds are actually accessing 4-year-old public pre-K. You will recall that your local dollars are going toward the universal access. So Durham Pre-K doesn't have the restrictions, and we are able to serve more children, but we do prioritize those children with the highest need based on a number of different factors, one of which is income, but we are not restricted by income, so we're able to fill where many families are slightly over or even moderately over the income restrictions for many of the programs. So we're able to serve more children. So quickly, we did complete a comprehensive RAP study. This was quite an endeavor because we did truly over 55 interviews with different administrators, different programs across the country, as well as locally and in North Carolina, really trying to drill down as to what the issues are around RAP care. You know, I formerly in Durham Public Schools was the Executive Director for Community Education, and I did work in the department that works in before and after care, and I watched all the things going on with quite a bit of sympathy. But in the pre-K arena, the before and after school is even more challenging, if that can be imagined, because the licensing regulations are different for those younger children. And of course, in the pre-K arena, we're experiencing the same staffing shortages that you are in traditional school age before and after care. So, but the RAP care study was really not a part of that staffing shortage. It was a part of how are people across the country addressing the need for our very young children to be served beyond the school day. We want to be able to open access to families, and that's what really matters. And it will be quite an endeavor. The local funding this year is, when it says pilot, what that means is we will serve around 40 children in RAP, 4-year-olds, this year, and we are enrolling families now toward that. The reason it's a pilot is because we will be intensively interviewing, surveying, assessing how that's going and what the family needs are and what the challenges are at the sites. Just a couple other highlights. We did increase the per child reimbursement to $1,300 per child per month for a BK licensed classroom. For those classrooms that are served by a teacher who's in the BK licensing process, the reimbursement rate was moved to $1,250 per month. You're all invited. You'll be seeing, well, it's already being advertised now, but we'll send you some specific information about our pre-K and early career expo. When we had our inaugural event prior to the pandemic, Wendy, you'll recall you came and spoke to the group. We appreciate that. The purpose of this, it's a collaborative event with partners from not only Durham Tech, but NCCU, UNC Chapel Hill, UNC Greensboro, as well as others, to bring attention to the opportunity to have a career in preschool education. And we have educational sessions for both people who are thinking about it as well as people who are currently preschool teachers and may not have the credentials to lead a pre-K classroom. It's a huge event that we are looking forward to having again in person this year. We've had it virtually during the pandemic. Let's see, next slide. So I'll speed up because I know you've got a busy agenda, but the thing that really makes Durham Pre-K different from some other communities and some of the other communities that are investing local dollars is that we are doing intensive coaching. I'll give you an example, not to disrespect any other county, but I'm going to use Wake County as an example for a moment. They're doing a lot of investments in local pre-K too, but what they're doing is just creating additional seats in NC pre-K at the same low reimbursement rate that the state has, and they are not conducting any kind of technical assistance or coaching for their teachers. So again, Durham leads the way, and we should really shine a light on that. The instructional strategies in the really this year are focusing strongly on social emotional development, as well as those things needed to complete the standards for the variety of partners that we have. The state, you in the public schools will certainly be aware of the state mandated a letters training this year for preschool, and we are integrating all of that so that not only the public school teachers are engaged with the letters training as well as others. We are in the mode for recruitment of future Durham Pre-K sites, really to look at, we're always looking ahead. And some of our private programs are not ready to meet the quality standards. You'll recall the way we've structured Durham Pre-K, the quality standards are higher than the NC Pre-K standards statewide. And that means that we have to elevate our practice in order to be sure that classrooms are ready to meet those standards to be a Durham Pre-K classroom. Not every public preschool classroom in Durham is a Durham Pre-K standard meeting classroom. So that's an important thing to know. Anyway, we are continuing to recruit, and we do provide what we call capacity building technical assistance. Those of you who've been around a long time might remember we called it the pipeline in the old days, but we felt like pipeline was misleading because not everybody makes it. And just because you're in the pipeline doesn't mean you're going to get to be a Durham Pre-K classroom. You have to meet those standards. So, Kate and I, we're going to really talk about some of the discussion items. Mostly we want to look at how the pre-K seats really are a part of your growing together work in Durham Public Schools. We appreciate that the public schools have made a commitment over time to have preschool classrooms in every elementary school. I will share with you that through our pre-K process, which will provide a more detailed report as those numbers completely fall out around November. But there are families who turn down their public pre-K seat because they specifically want a public school location. And it is consistent, and it's an important component of parent choice. We try to encourage them because we don't have enough seats for everyone in the public schools. And we don't want in our community to only have public pre-K in public schools. But that commitment to add it in every elementary school over time is an important one. And we're opening with Lion Farm. We did have to change some of our rules in order for Lion Farm to open as a Durham pre-K site. And that's because it will open with what's called a temporary license through the state, through child care licensing, which is required for Durham pre-K. But the public schools meet the standards, and therefore we changed the rules to allow the public schools to open with a temporary license. So those 2 classrooms at Lions Farm will be very important this year and filled up immediately. They filled up within a week of our selection process, which I'm sure doesn't surprise anybody. And we have a waiting list, and that waiting list, many of the people on the waiting list say they will just sit on the waiting list until there's a seat available in the public schools. Not all of them, but many of them. And we'll give you more details about that as those numbers fall out in November. But your commitment to adding classrooms at every elementary school is something that we appreciate and want to continue to focus upon over time. And then lastly, we do plan to convene a community event in early 2023 to gather input from families as well as other partners, but to provide updates on Durham's progress toward universal access. You know, the task force that I had the privilege of co-chairing back when you passed your resolution as elected bodies, that task force had really ambitious goals. And guess what? Those goals were for 2023. So 2023 will be here before we know it, and we will be coming back to the community and saying, yes, we were ambitious, we've accomplished a lot, but we're not there yet. And we also want to reassess because the pandemic changed the entire landscape for everything. We were on a growth trajectory prior to the pandemic that did get frozen during that time for obvious reasons. Now we're growing again, and we need to revise those goals as a community. So I think we're happy to answer questions, and also if anybody wants to weigh in around these discussion items, we'd love to hear your point of view. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda and Kate. Questions, comments?
Thanks, Kate and Linda. Excellent report to us today. I'm so glad you had the full amount of time this time to do this for us, to give us this great report. And I am loving the idea about the community event in 2023. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm so glad we set ambitious goals, even if we're falling short. It's really important to set ambitious goals and to mark our progress and to celebrate our successes and to talk about what are our challenges to help us meet those goals. And I think it will be great to just remind the community of this really important service the county and the school district are providing, and to get input on what additional needs might be and ideas for how to do better. So I love that idea. And I just really do want to congratulate you, Linda, for your leadership around this right from the start when we had the task force, and then putting together the governance committee, and just having CCSA be our administrator for our Durham Pre-K, I think has worked really well. And it's working even better now that we have our own early childhood person, Katie Lander, also, just being a mastermind for us and a good point of collaboration. I'm very excited about all this work and think it's really some of the most important work we do. When I think about pre-K, I think about a lot of things. I think about the fact that this will make children more ready for school. I think that it will help children be healthier. I think that in the long term, it will increase, future earning potential. All these things we read about in research. But one of the most important things we're actually doing, perhaps, is providing high quality child care at a time when that is so difficult to access and it's so expensive. And so we're also reducing one of the major costs for families, child care costs, and that means they'll have more money for things like housing. So in a way, it's also, a holistic strategy for dealing with affordable housing, if you think about it, which is, really what we're trying to do is think at a big system level about all of our challenges, and they intersect in so many ways. And there's just a huge point of intersection at pre-K, and early learning opportunities, early care opportunities. So just want to say all that and really emphasize how important I think this work is and how grateful I am to all of our staff and everyone that's working on it.
I really want to thank you for helping with the presentation that we did at NACO at our national conference, because I know that you helped to put those notes together. And one of the things that at the national level, this is one of their top priorities around child care, prenatal to 3 and pre-K. So Wendy was in the presentation as well, and this is one of the national initiatives that they are really undertaking. So I appreciate your help in preparing me to make sure that I lift up the things that we need to lift up in that area. And thank you for the work that you're doing, because we need more resources. We really need more resources to ensure that, because it's a bigger picture than just the children. It's about families. And because anytime children are not thriving, the parents are not thriving either. So it takes all of that to surround our children to ensure that they have what they need to thrive. So thank you for the work that you're doing. You just have to keep on pushing for it. Yes. Commissioner Jacobs, and then
Thank you, and I'm thrilled to have this update as well, and ditto on the comments that have been made thus far. A few things. One is I do want to lift up the role of wages for the pre-K staff, and that I'm really proud that one of the components of our pre-K is bringing up the salaries to the DPS salaries. In the national session that Chair Howerton and I were in, and also the county manager and Joanne, General Manager Pierce, and Deborah Craigway. We were all there.
we were all a team.
Yeah, we were all,
a team.
right?
This was not a one-man show. We made sure that all of us had something to say.
But one of the issues was nationally the lack of the pipeline you referenced, but the fact is that, most of our early childhood educators are making poverty wages. And so now, of course, the difficulty of attracting people into that field, but also the implications of that has for the workers themselves. So I'm really proud about that. And I want to just bring up the issue that came out of that conversation. And I think there was something in your report about this, but I would love to see us, and as part of the community convening, the role that employers can play in, employer-based pre-K. Because especially now when people are competing for workers, trying to attract talent, that I would hope that our employers would start to see their responsibility and role in helping to help pay for this and provide this. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that and how we can move forward with that. Second, I want to note that, again, in the ways that we all have to look at how we solve our community problems comprehensively, the county is opening a child care center at our 300 East Main Street project, 86 children child care. So we're trying to model and lead the way with that. And the third thing is that I wanted to ask about is, as part of the community convening and also report out to the community, will we be able to look at any screening data to see the actual impact of high-quality pre-K on our children when they start kindergarten? And I guess I have one more question, is how has COVID impacted our retention of the providers and the partners? So those are, I guess, 3 questions that I have follow-up.
Okay, if I miss something, you can prompt me. Couple things. First, I'll share with you, if you haven't seen it, I can send it to you, or it's on the CCSA website. But the most recent statewide North Carolina workforce study conducted under contract with DCD, Division of Child Development and Early Education by CCSA, shows the abysmal wages for our early care providers in Durham. So there's information by county. But we are not alone. It's a statewide problem and a national problem. One of the things that we are most invested in Durham Pre-K is around our true commitment to our teachers and our teacher assistants, those instructional leaders in the classroom. And we are paying our Durham Pre-K teachers in the private sites as well as in Head Start, as well as in all other NC Pre-K sites. We're paying them at the public school rate, Durham's pay scale. So that includes the supplement. And with the increases this year, we are also mirroring those increases in Durham Pre-K. That's a huge investment, and I will tell you that in that convening of the community of practice that I shared with you, that includes not only Durham, but Wake, Forsyth, Buncombe, and Charlotte-Mecklenburg counties, no one else is doing that. So now, that's our pre-K focus. Of course, the larger early childhood system is a different issue and for a different meaning than today, obviously, but we do have a wages issue, and I love that you use the term wages because at Child Care Services Association, we administer a wages statewide program, which is a teacher supplement for local programs for teachers. That supplement is only a few $1,000s a year across the state. And Durham early childhood providers not involved in pre-K do access wages through Smart Start funding provided by Durham's Partnership for Children. And it's a small step toward helping with their wages. But the wages issue is a huge, big deal. And I do think that you can't have that conversation without engaging not only community partners, but the business community. And that pressure on the business community in terms of staffing and our new reality, late pandemic, I think really brings that conversation much more to the forefront. I think that in Durham we've been talking about it for a long time, and we've made some baby steps towards supporting our teachers in a more foundational way, but it's certainly not enough. So I'd love to have a conversation with any of you about that. I could talk all day, but I won't. Moving to some of your other questions, if I can remember what all they are. I think the convening of the community event, as we begin to plan it, we will take into consideration all these types of questions. We've envisioned it as an update around the pre-K investment. However, we know that the task force was charged with looking at more than just 4-year-olds, and we deferred that based on where we were at that time. And we do need to have those larger conversations. And so I think as we can, plan for the event, we can certainly look at what all the topics should be and what kind of updates we should provide. And then you mentioned the important question about data. I know that being able to hang our hat on what kind of progress children are making is a critical piece of our investments. And it is unfortunately so complex with our braided funding model. Each entity has its own measuring systems, and we are working hard in the community to create a more unified data sharing agreements and opportunities for a really deep dive into those evaluation tools and the way that children are assessed at this age. We do have, though, some indicators that we can share, and we will share prior to the convening later in the school year so that you don't arrive at a community event not getting surprised by any information. But the data piece is a huge complex issue and something that we meet about regularly to try to address what the barriers are to accessing the information and how we can be accountable for all of the resources we're spending. Anecdotal information and telling our story is a critical piece of this work, but it's not enough. We do need some of the more specific information and data to be able to share. So did I miss a question? Oh, about the pandemic? Yeah, I'm sorry. Obviously, the pandemic has impacted everything, but we are very pleased that we only lost one site in terms of one private childcare site from the pre-K, from the Durham pre-K family. That site did decide that they just could not keep all their classrooms open. There's still a Durham pre-K site, but they specifically closed 2 of their 4-year-old classrooms during the pandemic, and that we did shift those seats to other locations, so we did not have a loss of the service, but it was a really unfortunate impact from the pandemic. The impact of the pandemic has more been on our families and our children, and I mentioned that we are focusing on social emotional supports, and we talk all the time about supporting children's social emotional development, but there is nothing more important right now. I mean, we see it in everything. We see it even when families come, when we reopen to the public and we do serve. Families can enroll in person or online or by phone. We do all kinds of strategies to make it easy to enroll. But the families who come in person, even in the way that their children play and interact while they're waiting for their parents, and the stress level of the parents and customers that we serve, we had to hire an expert to do some training with our staff on conflict mediation and conflict resolution. In our customer service team, we have a team of family support counselors that help families with not only the public pre-K application, but also accessing child care and learning about the child care system and about child development. And we had to do some intensive specific training with our staff because of the tremendous changes in the types of interactions we're having. And I'm sure that, I know that's not unique to us, but we see it all the time. But in terms of the numbers, we have continued to grow. Our budget was frozen during the pandemic. We didn't get new resources, but we did move them around to try to adapt and use them in different ways. One example of that, and I won't go on too much longer, but I will share with you, prior to the pandemic, we had, with our partners, because that's what they did previously, we had a paper application process. And I will share with you now that we no longer have any paper. We have an online application process for families who may not have good access to online. We accept applications by phone appointments. We have them in all kinds of ways, but they are not paper anymore. And we have a mobile car unit that goes out into communities with iPad enrollment that we developed, as well as we shifted everything within 1 month of the pandemic, in 1 month of the big shutdown around the end of March. Within 1 month of that, we transitioned all of our team to virtual, and it was quite an endeavor, especially as a nonprofit. Child Care Services Association, as a nonprofit, that was a huge endeavor for us. And the Durham pre-K work was our top priority because the pandemic happened, in terms of the close down, happened only 1 month after we opened applications for that following school year for pre-K. And so it could not have been worse timing for us. So I won't keep going, but I will say that we shifted the investments that the county is making to allow for that virtual work. And in fact, our virtual investment for the online application will cost over $50,000 next year just for the software application, $50,000 a year, which was huge for us from zero.
Thank you very much for this presentation in regards to pre-K. I know it's important that all families have access, and so this is a step in that direction. But I know that we at DPS are really excited about the Growing Together and having a commitment to pre-K. So I would like, as you collect more data to give to us, to make sure that we have enough information about pre-Ks in each region, and to make sure that we have stories and ways for families to say, hey, I'm not accepting this seat because I have kids at another school, and all the bell times are consistent now, right? So we want to make sure that we are hearing why families are choosing to remain on the wait list or choosing not to enroll in DPS site.
Yeah, we're happy to provide that. That'll be part of really around mid-November, we will be compiling all of that. I mean, we're compiling it now, but it should be ready.
Thank you all. I really wanted to acknowledge all the work that you all have done to build this aspirational capacity. It's great to be here. I was thinking, and Mr. Davis, of your mom as such a leader in pre-K within the district years ago, and how it takes planning and foresight to get us this far. But I wanted us to make sure we're explicit, and that your staff is also aware that as we're doing the bond, pre-K is built into that explicitly with those elementary projects. I didn't know if Mr. Davis or if you or Dr. Monk wanted to speak to that capacity that is coming on board. And then thus we'll need operational funding before too long as our budget staffs work together.
Yes, Board Member Bai, you are correct. In the 6 renovations, they do include increasing the capacity to 1 through 4 classrooms, given the parameters of the site. But yes, we do include increasing our pre-K capacity at those sites, yes.
Commissioner Lom?
This is really, really quick. I know that the last time that we spoke, it was her? No. Oh. She can go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll go after.
All right, don't deliver. Okay, so really, really quick. I know the last time that we spoke, we were talking about how there were regions that did not have pre-Ks in them. And I know that you said you had to close 2 classrooms, but you moved those seats elsewhere. I'm wondering if you could let us know whether or not we moved those to a region that previously did not have one, and if we could get an update on, I know that you all work to incubate certain pre-K so that they can come into the system. I know that that's been an issue that we've heard about from the community, and are we seeing that incubation process move a bit smoother so that we can see some of those regions that, I think sometimes when people think universal pre-K, they think it's everywhere in Durham, and it's really not. And there are places that don't have them at all, don't have a center, a private center, school, or anything. And so what are some things, 1, did those move? 2, how's the incubation process going? 3, how can we help in that endeavor? Because I don't, want to, parents come up to me, women come up to me in the grocery store saying, I can't get my pre-K in. I want to at least be able to tell them something and send them in the right direction. And I've been able to since our last conversation, but maybe get a little bit of an update about that. Thank you.
Sure, thanks for those questions. In our last meeting, we did come out of that to really specifically look at some of your concerns that you shared with us. A couple things. If you're in the community and people need help, we do have the 800 number, and from that 800 number, we triage all problems, and so, or challenges or opportunities. So I do encourage you to use that whenever needed. In terms of our spread, our geographic spread, that will be part of our update because it was premature to bring those numbers to today's meeting based on the fact that we're enrolling children and all that. But our addition of seats, addition of classrooms is based upon not only the readiness, of course, of either locally licensed childcare programs or the public schools to be Durham pre-K classrooms, but it's also about where do we need more seats. You'll recall that the county paid for us to do as a assessment of the community back in 2017-18. We did the pre-K supply and demand study, and you'll remember from that study that at that time we found that only 1 out of every 5 low-income children who live in low-income families had access to a public pre-K seat. That's, irregardless of any other income measures. But Now, with the growth, we are intentional and do our best to try to place them where the most needed. It's challenging because, you know, many of you may have heard about the national conversation around what they want to call child care deserts. And Durham does have some locations, some parts of our county that do not have licensed high-quality child care programs. There is lots, you know, in our community and in the early childhood system, of course, there's family, friend, and neighbor care, which is unregulated care, and families often take advantage of that based upon their own family needs. But in terms of licensed, regulated care, we do have places in our community where it is not readily available. And so our capacity building is both getting existing classrooms ready. That's part of what Durham Pre-K is doing with the county investment. But our other programs and services through the early childhood system is about trying to encourage people to become licensed programs. That's not part directly of our Durham Pre-K work, but a Child Care Services Association that is part of all of our services. So we have specialists who work with people who want to open programs. But, I mean, it takes time, and the pandemic has certainly impacted that. We have lost seats across the early childhood system in Durham, not in Durham Pre-K, but in the early childhood system as a whole. And you all also, many of you will have heard me talk on and on about infant toddler care in our community, which of course directly impacts school readiness also. And we do have a dire shortage of infant toddler seats in our community. So addressing the spread, we will give you those numbers, and we'll be conscious of the fact that you need the best information possible to make decisions. And what we plan to do is, from the data we presented in the supply and demand report in 2018, we plan to do what we can. We won't be able to fully update that because a supply and demand report is a lot of work that is not currently funded. But we will be able to update from that report how Durham Pre-K has changed those numbers. And we will do that so that you have that information. What else did I forget? Did I answer all your questions? Actually, that's a very complicated question, of course. Those seats that we lost were in South Durham, well, right into South Durham, the edge there, and that is a huge area of shortage for seat availability. We have, with the addition, at the time we lost them, we were not able that school year which was the last school year, we were not able to place them in a geographically similar place. But for this upcoming school year, with our additional seats and with Lions Farm opening also, we have been able to put more seats in that South Durham area. But do we have enough? No. And the complicating factor for families who say, I can't get in, which they do say often, is that we are prioritizing based on where we can around greatest need related to family income. We're not restricting on family income. But many times, the most high demand areas of Durham, those seats fill up like that. And then the offers we're making don't align as well with the family's needs. That's reality. And so some families, unfortunately, cannot be accommodated in a way that works for them. And that's part of our growth trajectory, is trying to make sure we're deeply analyzing those and understanding where the needs are.
Thank you. And when I said can't get in, I was actually talking about the providers, but you provided what I need.
Providers.
I'm not talking about parents.
Is a whole other thing.
That's what I was talking about.
There are many providers unhappy, yes.
Yes.
And it is hard to be a Durham Pre-K site. The standards are very high.
Yeah. So I'll let somebody else go on, and I'll just follow up via email because I know we have other questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for this presentation and all the work that's gone in behind the scenes from y'all, our DPS staff, to keep increasing access to pre-K. I had a question about metrics, if like for next time y'all present to us, if working with DPS, I would love to see, I know we see national data around what access to pre-K means for the child once they enter the K through 12 system. But I would love to see if we're able to collect that at a Durham County level as much as possible of when a child has access to pre-K here, how that increases their performance once they enter.
I was just going to thank you so much, Commissioner Alum. I think it's very top of mind. We recognize that in order to continue investing in scaling access to pre-K, even though the data are very clear about what high quality pre-K means for kids when they get to kindergarten and really later in life, maybe even more later in life than when they get to kindergarten. It is very difficult to provide a population measure for Durham pre-K for kids across all publicly funded seats because of that work to braid and the different assessments that are used and the lack of full access to data. But it is something we're continuing to work on. So yes, completely hear you. And I think we're working on it, and I think continuing to rest on the knowledge that the program has been designed in a way that based on the data that we do have from North Carolina and from across the country, that we can be confident that the way this program is being operated will benefit the children that are participating.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Linda. Just want to follow up on the data. I remember probably 3 or 4 years when I came in, I attended a lot of sessions where we had data of those students that's coming to DPS. Lower than 50% of those students were kindergarten ready. I think that was really good work as we studied our work. I hear more conversation now about access, but I would like also to see the metric as we are investing more on those pre-K, are those students that are matriculating to us, are they really kindergarten ready? There was some good metric there as I attended a lot of those sessions. We had metrics where we had a student that attended our pre-K, Durham pre-K, the one that were staying home with their parents. Those data would be really helpful for us to be able to make adjustment. So we can work with DPS. Whatever that data was available, you guys were able to collect those data at our points. That would be something that we really need to continue to see. I really like the fact that you guys are aligning your professional development with what we are doing as well. You want to pay more, that's great. And then you're looking at those certifications for those folks that are coming that are really well equipped to do the work. But I think personally, I would like to see more data as we're doing this work. The more we're investing, we really want to make sure that the students that are matriculating to us or going to other places, they are really kindergarten ready.
I agree, yes. And I'll share that Durham Public Schools, Durham Public Schools holds much of that data, and we would love an opportunity to access that data. So we can work together to really put all of the different pieces together. As children enter kindergarten, the public schools are charged with reviewing their readiness and where they came, and that data are very very close in this system, and I think our work to create data sharing opportunities and data sharing agreements is a critical component of this. So appreciate you saying that, and we'll look forward to working with your staff to make it happen.
Yeah, just a follow-up. Yeah, not all those kids come to us. We're going to have the DPS data, but I think the fact that county is supporting all these initiatives, there should be a way to not only looking at the student that's coming to DPS, but all the 1,600 that are locally funded.
I agree.
If we can have those data, I think that's going to advise County Commission and everybody else how to properly continue investing in this.
Thanks for having us.
other public comments? Hearing none, we can adjourn.